Well, hello, a very warm welcome to everyone to my new YouTube channel, The Career Philosopher. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time. There's no better way to get started than to just do it. So I'm just doing it. It's very early in the morning. It's probably the time that I'll get to do these videos. And the idea of the channel is to talk about jobs and careers and recruitment and talent acquisition and intertwine some ancient wisdom and some modern philosophy and see where we get. And I'll be learning along the way. So thanks for coming on the journey with me. Let's get straight in. Today, I want to talk about something that you probably know really well already, which is the difference between having something and being something. And it's a concept that was made popular all throughout philosophical history. Very recently, in the 20th century, a philosopher and psychoanalyst named Erich Fromm from Germany. Where is Erich Fromm? He's from Germany. And he wrote a book on this topic. It was actually one of the last books he ever wrote, but it was a critique on consumerism. And I want to build on what he said from a careers and jobs perspective. So I'll bring that all in towards the end. We'll see how we tie it all together. So a quick example of the having mode is, again, you're really familiar with this. As you're pushing a trolley down the supermarket aisle, there are literally thousands of items, on your left and right hand side, and all of those items are something that you can have. You just need to pick it up off the shelf and buy it, and it's yours. And the having mode, you can have a car, have a house, have a piece of chewing gum. We're really familiar with having things because we possess them and we can hold them and manipulate them. And then we have the being mode, and the being mode is really around embodiment. And these are things that you have to become or be in order to achieve that mode. So, an example could be you want to be honest, or you want to be funny, or you're being hilarious. So the being mode is something that we're familiar with as well. Now, what we might not be so familiar with is that as consumers, we're constantly facing a barrage of modal distortion, distortion between the being mode and the having mode. And it's really an intentional, most of the time it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. It's a way to reframe products and services to maximize sales and to generate, business outcomes that businesses want to achieve. And in the world of jobs and careers, it's happening more than we know. Job boards, employers, recruiters, they all use this psychological tool to appeal to your having mode, not your being mode. And you'd forgive them for doing that. And there's obviously good reason for doing that, is that the having mode, it aligns and appeals to your desire to be instantly gratified. So it gives you the thought that that's something that you can have. If you want it, you can get it. And it's really creating faster outcomes if you appeal to the having mode. Now, before we dive into how this manifests in the jobs and careers space, I want to quickly have a look at a couple of other examples out in the world. These are completely random to jobs and careers. These are just examples that I was able to think of where we can see modal distortion happening in front of our eyes, and usually it's in a passive sense that we consume this modal distortion. But the first example I have is from the lovable 2000s movie called Rush Hour, and in a particular scene, Lee, who's played by Jackie Chan, takes Carter, who's played by Chris Tucker, to a massage parlor called Heaven on Earth, and Carter is presented with a smorgasbord of attractive women, and the business owner, Madame, there asks Chris Tucker to choose from any of the women, which one will he have? So have a look at the scene here.
Oh my goodness. This place is off the hook. I love Hong Kong.
You get a massage from Chinese girl before?
No, but I heard it was the bomb.
Come with me. You pick any girl for you and your friend.
Any girl?
Any girl.
Okay, so taking nothing away from the lighthearted comedy that Rush Hour is, I wanted to highlight here that obviously sex workers are commoditized as something that you can have. And anyone in this industry, anyone in this line of work knows to appeal to the having mode, not the being mode, um, for it to really work effectively. And what you're doing in that industry is you're buying intimacy in a transactional way, money exchange for services. Now, is this how we talk about love and intimacy in the real sense? No. So when we think about it in the real sense, we talk about the being mode. It's someone that you want to be with. It's not someone that you want to have. You would say to your partner, uh, I want to be with you for the rest of my life, or you say, I see myself being with that person. So real love uses the being mode, and when it's transactional and sold to you, it is appealing to the having mode. Now, that's modal distortion happening in one direction. I've also brought an example of it happening in the complete opposite direction. And the best example I could think about for that happening is in the perfumes and colognes industry. Now, as you'd imagine, scents and odors and smells, they're notoriously difficult to market via traditional mediums. And these brands go to extraordinary lengths to focus on, beautiful packaging and, wonderful design of their bottles. And, they leverage colors and shapes and, as much as they can, but it's still not enough. And the typical commercial or advertisement for this product uses modal distortion in the other direction. And I thought I'd take the liberty of creating what I call a typical perfume ad to show that perfume ads, they appeal to the being mode, even though they're simply a product that you can just have. So I created this in Canva. It took about 8 minutes. Have a look at it here. Okay, so here's our star. She's powerful, she's fierce, but she's also well measured and delicate. And she is introspective and peaceful. And then at this point, we'd probably whisper the name Serenity. I hope you can tell I'm having a lot of fun with this. Okay, so we can clearly see that perfume ads, they leverage the being mode, even though they're simply a product that you can just have. Now, let's switch back to jobs and careers, and let's start at a real basal level. We've all been children in our lives, and some of us have children. So we're familiar with what I'm about to say. There's a very cliche question that you ask kids as they get above toddler age, and that is, what do you want to be when you grow up? The focus is on the being mode. You don't say to a child, what job do you want to have when you grow up? In fact, that question might not even make any sense to them. But as we hit the employment market and as we hit that age, we start to accumulate responsibilities and liabilities and sensibilities, and the vernacular and the context starts to shift. Now, I'll get into naivety as a basic critique of what I'm saying in a moment. But what I want to focus on now is what is the right mindset if you're looking for a new job? How do we think about jobs in the right way to make sure that we're staying true to ourselves and not falling for an effective marketing strategy? And this is the way I like to think about it. A job or occupation is asking for embodiment. And depending on how you embody that job, actually shapes it back to you. Now, that's a tricky concept to get your head around, but I do have a thought experiment for that. And I'm going to call it the magical road. The magical road. So imagine you're driving down a road, but the road itself is not fixed. It's not something that exists in a fixed way. Instead, the road responds to you as a driver. So if you drive carelessly and you're distracted and you're unengaged, then the road becomes icy and cold and slippery and bumpy and slow. And if you then start to focus and engage on driving the best that you can and put your energy into driving well, then the road starts to offer you traction and stability. And that then allows you to go faster and smoother, and all the twists are gone and it's nice and straight. So jobs are like this in a sense. it's a misconception that a job is an entity that lives disconnected from the person who does the job. They're kind of entangled in a dance. So let's bring that back to having and being. I'm not so naive to think that you shouldn't look at a job from the having mode. I get it. Like you need a job and you need to have an income and you need to have something to pay the bills and you need to pay the mortgage and you want to have perks and benefits in your job. So there's a hell of a lot of use to think about what you can have in your job and what job to have. But if you want opportunity to present itself to you, both in your current job and from new potential places, then you need to also be thinking about the being mode. And this is something that, I've not just spoken about or written about, or I'm speaking about now. I've absolutely exemplified this behavior. I've had 8 different job titles in my current employer, and I would love to see more people do the same. So this is the best way I would describe it. Let's look at a real world example. You've got 2 baristas, Michael and Carlos, and they both work in busy cafes. And like everyone else in virtually the entire world, they do want a better salary. They want recognition, they want respect, and they want all of the universal goals that everyone wants. So Michael, he's looking at his job from the having mode. So he asks his boss, the cafe owner, for a pay rise. Now, the cafe owner tells him that the economy is tricky and it's uncertain at the moment. And, let's check in 12 months. End of story. Now, Carlos, he's looking at his job from the being mode. And he decides that from tomorrow, he's going to start to be more engaging with customers. He's going to be more positive. He becomes mindful about reacting to issues that arise in the cafe. He shows leadership whenever the opportunity arises. And after a short while, inevitably, the cafe owner starts to really appreciate that Carlos is a cornerstone to the cafe running smoothly. So the owner starts to entrust the running of the cafe to Carlos, which soon leads to Carlos being promoted to cafe manager with a significant pay rise. So when Carlos approached his job from the being mode, he thought about what he could be in his job. Customers were happier. His colleagues worked more efficiently. His employer was more successful. He made more money. He created growth opportunities in his career, created a new career path. But most importantly, and maybe in the ultimate sense, Carlos experiences fulfillment. So, like the magical road that we spoke about earlier, the path is being shaped for Carlos by the way that he's decided to drive, by the way that he's started to be through his being. Now, that's something that we should all try to understand, that when jobs are presented to us, whether we're looking for a new job or we're talking to our employer and thinking about our current job, usually the presentation is around the having mode, because it's easier to sort of wrap your head around a job through its attributes and what we can have in that job. But you have to bring in your being goals. So if you want to be a contributor to the world, if you want to make a difference in people's lives, if you want to be recognized for your work, if you want to be rewarded for your work, these are all things that have to be approached from the being mode. And again, like the magical road does, when you start to embody these principles, the road feeds back to you positive things. So that's a quick introduction to the idea of the having mode and the being mode in the context of careers. And if you want to have something new, you might have to be something new first. Or if you're looking for a new job, you shouldn't ask, in what job will I have the most? Maybe you should ask, what job will allow me to be the most? And that could even be the job that you're in right now. So thank you very much for listening. I have a number of topics on my list that I will get around to, hopefully at the pace of 1 or 2 videos a week. So please subscribe and thank you again.